Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. I'm sitting alongside Ben Bolte, and you are the product manager for the Bike Share program.
Yes.
The project manager, I should say. and then, of course, Nick Como, the communications director for the Downtown Alliance.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for being on. I'm excited to talk about this. We just showed a segment of Chelsea, so she was here in spirit anyway, riding on the Bike Share bikes with you, Ben, and so she was doing it in heels. You got her to ride a bike in heels.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal, showing people that you can wear your regular clothing and still use these things.
I'm sure that wasn't difficult to get her to ride in heels. She likes to do just about everything in heels.
No, she pretty much volunteered. It was very helpful.
That's awesome. But it's proof that you can, and that's what these bikes are all about, is being able to kind of accommodate everybody.
Yeah, I think one of the typical reasons why a person doesn't ride more for transportation is they don't want to bring an outfit. Like, I've got this ever-growing list of anecdotes where somebody like Nick or somebody from Jesse from the Downtown Alliance will ride their road bike into the office, and then if they have a meeting or somewhere up the street, they go, "Can I borrow the Bike Share bike?" Because they don't want to bring their clip-in shoes or like put on their butt pad or whatever else they need. They can just grab their briefcase, throw it in the front, and just ride off.
Yeah, they don't have to change. Yeah, typically that's the one you see always is shoe change.
Yeah, at least a shoe change.
With tennis shoes is not.
Yeah,
exactly
and this
ideal.
isn't always the best. Like when you're riding in traffic, you need to be able to kind of look around and see things.
Yeah, and you don't have to stuff your pants into your sock anymore, which is great. There's the chain guard on there.
That was always my favorite
That's a fashion
thing.
statement, though. I've got no problem with that. You know, that says you are a biker.
Yeah, I think Mayor Becker will do it regardless. Like he'll keep that there, even though he won't need it with the Bike Share bikes.
So we have had a lot of support for this. Speaking of Mayor Becker, I mean, there's plenty of support for this Bike Share program. Talk about that.
So, yeah, it just originally started because Mayor Becker wanted us to look into it because he likes to stay as a progressive mayor. What are other transportation options available that we can look into? Yeah, it's just a really, really cool opportunity.
And how many cities have something like this right now?
Man, there were 0 in 2010, early 2010. And then about 4 started, Denver, Minneapolis, D.C., and now there's about 20. And there are at least 30 other cities looking at it. New York will launch pretty soon.
What's the difference between this and a bike rental?
So bike rental is, I think, the largest confusing thing when you talk about Bike Share. Because bike rental is you go into a bike shop, you rent a specific bike that is fit for you. It's either a lady's bike or a men's bike, and it's a road bike, a mountain bike, what have you. And you have that bike, that's all for the amount of time that you rent it. A bike share system is where you have hundreds of bikes, dozens of bikes scattered throughout an urban area, and you can take any one of those bikes and drop them off at any other station, and you're not responsible for it as soon as you drop it off.
Wow. How many stations will we start out with in Salt Lake?
At least 11. We might get up to 13 if we raise a little more money in the next 6 weeks or so. But then through grants and everything else, we can hopefully get to the hundreds within a few years.
Now, with there being just, you know, I mean, that sounds like a lot of stations, but it's still, moving bikes around is something that you probably have had to think about. How do you guys move them around to make sure that there's always a bike at the station?
So we have a few ways to do that. One is that you have somebody in the morning sort of go around. When you get to the size of DC, they literally have just vehicles moving bikes around at all times. Yeah, absolutely. We're working with a local guy building bike trailers. So like a Bike Share bike will pull other Bike Share bikes and move them around. But the GPS component will let us know which stations are really, really popular. And so we can design it a little more specifically after the fact, based on the routines and patterns of the people that have been using it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I was mentioning earlier, this is a lot like, and it doesn't seem like it, but it's a lot like when you go and rent a cart at the airport to move your bags from one terminal to another.
Yeah.
It's a very similar thing, and you often see their little trailer of, you know, 1,000 carts behind them because they got to move it to the one place where all of them leave from, which is typically a bag claim or something. And so that's why I wondered that question.
No,
it's a very similar plan.
It's very true. Usually the simpler ideas are the ones that are most successful, like Redbox, Netflix, like these things that are just on paper. I don't know, like that's when they work really, really well.
Yeah, well, this is an awesome project. What does this bring to businesses downtown?
I think it's another enhancement for businesses. I think the important thing is that it works really well with public transportation, so that you can take Trax, which is free downtown, and then use Bike Share to get you from where you get off Trax to whatever business you want to go to.
Right.
It'll open up parking in front of businesses, so for the folks that do choose to drive, there'll be open parking spaces in front of shops on Broadway or the Capitol Theater. And I think it'll just make Salt Lake is growing in such a positive direction, and it's such smart growth with the forethought that the mayor and their office has put forward to have something like bike share that works well with public transportation and with tracks and with bike lanes that they're putting in all around the city. Right. Is going to make it a much easier time to come downtown and to stay downtown and to want to return downtown.
Well, especially with them raising the price of parking downtown and the times for that. There's definitely a reason why you want to consider having a bike available to you.
Yeah, parking and driving your car is just one way to get downtown, and the raising parking is actually going to help businesses because it's going to push people into the garages and off-street parking where they want to park for a longer period of time,
right.
Which is exactly what businesses want. They want those spots in front of their shops to be open so people can get in and park and get back out. That's the whole idea of on-street parking. It's a very short turnover amount of time, and the off-street parking is
the same
something
thing with
else.
Bike share stuff. If you rent one specific bike from a bike shop, you're only going to be riding that a third of the time that you're renting it, but nobody else can use it while you're renting it. Now, the bike share bikes, you're either riding it or it's available to somebody else. Right. Sort of like the parking stall. It's either being used or somebody else can use it.
So to correct something that might become a misnomer for people, when you take a bike share bike out, it's not as if, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you can say drive it down, say you pick it up at Rio Grande Station, and you drive it down 4 South, and you go to you end up at L&L Barbecue or something. Are you going to be able to you lock it up yourself and leave it, or do you have to go and park it at a station before you go and eat?
So the idea is that you would just go from station to station to station, right. Especially while we only have a dozen to start out with.
Okay.
We are going to have temporary cable locks that are made by Kryptonite inside the bike that are actually attached to the bicycle. So you could take it wherever you want and then attach it up. But if you keep one particular bike longer than a half hour without checking again, docking it somewhere at a station, they'll charge you $1.50 every half hour after that.
I see.
Because it's not being available for somebody else, basically.
That makes sense.
Because if you don't have a station near where you want to go, we need to put a station where you want to go.
Right.
So we've tried to be pretty strategic in where we put them.
And you do have some GPS on these, so you can kind of tell where they're at.
Yeah, and we can see like how many calories that you burn, and so can you. And there's a smartphone application. Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely. The GPS thing's really cool, and the smartphone apps are really cool because not only can the user see how many calories they burned that ride or in total, a station sponsor or the city can look at it and see, well, collectively we've done this much and we haven't put out this many pounds of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, or we've saved this much on parking or gasoline. And the smartphone app will be available for free to users, and you can see in real time how many bikes and docks are available at each station.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can just
you're never going to be
double
going to a dock and finding out there's not a bike there. You should already know.
You should already know. And we're going to plan and try and make sure that it's always available.
That's awesome. Well, I think that kind of, that one little added feature is what really makes this something that's, completely usable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, without it, it would probably be much more difficult.
Yeah.
The whole idea of this program is to make it easy, to make you want to do it, to make you want to ride a bike, to make you want to come downtown. And I think the GPS accomplishes that, the chain guard accomplishes that.
Yeah.
And once you ride the bikes, once you do it once, you're going to be hooked because they're a very easy ride, they're a very smooth ride. And then you'll realize, I think I might leave the car at home this time and just use Trax and bike share because it is a much easier way to get around town.
It kind of reminds me of the old Schwinn's. I mean, that's essentially what it looks like.
Yeah, old school cruiser.
Roads, yeah, exactly. You're like a cruising bike. Is it the foot brake or is it a hand brake?
Hand brakes.
Hand brakes.
Hand brakes.
Okay.
They 3 speeds. They're all internal hubs. So they have that old retro look with a cruiser bike, but it's all new technology. So automatic front and rear LED lights that just turn on. So you have a big white one in the front and a big red one in the back. And they'll stay on for 4 minutes, like after you come to a stop. So if you come to a stoplight, still covered. And then the internal hubs are great because usually you have to be pushing on a pedal to shift gears. Yeah. These you can just be at a stop and go, take it down to first, so you're good to go.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great program. Now, if somebody, because this is a growing program, if somebody just says, hey, I want to be part of this, they're a company that wants to sponsor or something like that, what do they do?
They can go to greenbikeslc.org and look up my information, Ben Bolte, project manager. called Downtown Alliance, or go to facebook.com/SLC Bike Share.
Well, this is a really terrific program. I think it brings a lot to the city, and certainly the next question, I guess, is when do we get it up here in Park City?
Hopefully soon. I really, really hope that other cities, it becomes a regional, statewide thing. Like, we've been researching this for about 2 years, and it takes a lot of time and to get people on board. But if they can see the success of it, and I know it'll be a success in Salt Lake City, we can make this a statewide thing where for the same membership price, you guys can have a system in Park City, someone can have one in St. George, Provo.
Yeah, Ogden and Provo
and we connect them
sense.
via transit, and that access membership up here works in Salt Lake City too.
Well, you mentioned being able to take them on the or being able to go on the train and finally using that, because a lot of people don't use the train because they think, well, I'm going to get there and then I've got to walk forever, or I'm going to get there with my bike and I'm going to show up at the train station. There's already going to be somebody in every car with a bike, and that does happen occasionally.
Totally does.
It does.
This solves that problem altogether.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to bring your bike with you on the
Most
train.
car trips are within a mile anyway, and I think the same thing is true for tracks or public transportation. Your final destination is within a mile. So leave your bike at home, so you don't have to worry about it getting stolen or getting dinged up on the train, or you're forgetting about it or whatever. You get on tracks or the bus wherever you live, and then you get off and you can grab a bike share bike, usually very close to transit. I mean, it's going to be designed that way to work in cooperation with transit. And then you can take the bike from tracks to the library, or to the Energy Solutions Arena to a game, or wherever you want to go, to Pioneer Park for the free concert, the $5 concert series, the Twilight series.
That's pretty much free. That's like a service
It's pretty
charge.
much free.
Yeah, it's a free
$5,
night.
I don't even notice.
Well, you guys will probably have a lot of respect for this, but I did a story just a couple of days ago about how the millennials and the Generation Y, they're not learning to drive a car until they're 18 typically now. The number is actually above 25%.
That's very
and
cool.
that same number, it continues on to the number of people who actually utilize cars. That, again, almost 25% of them don't, well into the age of 34. So really crazy that they've kind of talked to these people about, well, what is it that's not, that makes you not want to get your driver's license? What makes it, something where you don't want to drive as much? Because they're turning something in the order of 25% less mileage too. And it's about being green and being responsible. It's pretty cool.
That's a fantastic advantage, but it's also, I mean, the stats are out there. It's also a very effective cost-saving thing. Cars are expensive. Putting gas in them and maintenance is expensive, and that's not to say cars are bad, but a city like Salt Lake, which is growing and more population and more cars on the road, you're going to reach a mass capacity at some point. So it's the responsibility of the city to have things like this, public transportation and a bike share program that allow people to get on there, and they'll save money, they'll be healthier. There are so many benefits to it.
Yeah, AAA says you spend about $9 grand a year on a car, and then the average cost for a bike is $300 a year. And then if a bike share program gets really, really big, you wouldn't even need a bike, and so you only spend like $60, $75 a year.
That's pretty tremendous.
Yeah, millennials get a bad rap, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do.
I think we do a lot of good stuff too,
things.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're self-centered, but we do good stuff too.
Good work. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the show.
Appreciate it.
I really enjoy having you guys as always.
Us.
Thanks for coming up with some more good ideas, and keep that up. That's awesome. All right, there's just a little bit more Mountain Morning Show, a wrap-up coming up in just a minute. You won't want to go anywhere.